Welcome to Arnie Bus's Facebook live streaming. Who am I? I'm Arnie Bus. I'm a relationship coach, a published author, a workshop leader, and today I want to talk about arguing. Now, if you're in any kind of relationship, the chances are you've had arguments. But I ask you this question: what if you never had to have another argument ever again? What would your life be like? What would your relationship be like? Well, today I'm just going to briefly talk about why we keep having arguments, and I'll give you some top ways that you can never have to argue ever again. Now, one of the most important ways in which we keep in the arguments is our need to be right. So why are we arguing? Because we need to be right. But even more important than that, underneath that need to be right, why do we need to be right? Oftentimes it's a fear of being wrong. Now, think about what it would feel like if you were wrong. Does that feel terrible? Are you so perfect that you're never wrong? I know I'm not. I think I was wrong once, but no, I was mistaken about that. Haha. So if wanting to be right and being afraid of being wrong are the cause, then how can we overcome that? The first is by understanding that being right is an ego thing. And being wrong in no way degrades or diminishes who you are as a valuable, lovable, wonderful human being. One of the things I love is a saying that I learned from the writings of Pia Mellody, and that phrase is perfectly imperfect, and you are perfectly imperfect. And what does that mean? That means that we're all wrong at one time or another, and that's nothing to be afraid of. And there's nothing to defend. So if we give up having to be right, if we realize that we don't have to be afraid of being wrong, and realize that we're absolutely okay exactly as we are, even if we are wrong, then we never have to argue ever again. And maybe you're thinking, well, what if the other person just won't give it up? And we give you 3 tips on how you can deal with that. The first is actually a mental one. It relates to not being afraid of being wrong and not having to be right. And that is, do you find yourself immediately expressing a disagreement when you hear something that you may not agree with? So if you don't do that, then it's hard to argue with that. Now, maybe you don't say something right away, but you're mentally tapping your foot. You're thinking, okay, they're going blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as they stop, I'm going to set them straight. I'm going to tell them how they're wrong. So put that aside as well. And instead, you say, okay, those are things I can't do. What should I do? Validate the other person. Validate their point of view. Validate any feelings that you see being brought up. And remember that validating does not mean agreeing. So many times we're afraid of validating the other person because we're afraid that they're going to think that we agree with them when we don't. There's nothing wrong with not agreeing with the other person, but that doesn't mean you have to show up for the argument. what diffuses the argument is by validating what the other person is expressing. And the most effective way of validating is tracking. And you've heard me talk a lot about tracking. That's a whole topic for a complete workshop. So don't immediately disagree either with your words or in your thoughts. Validate the other person's point of view by tracking them. And I guarantee you that you will never have to have an argument ever again. Until next time, message me if you have any questions or comments. Put any comments in wherever they put this here on Facebook. I'd love to hear what your experience with this is. So until next time.